Quiet you. The sun's in Aquarius, and do you know it's the dawn of age of Aquarius? And I'm surrounded by them. 3 on the staff. Scott, it's going to be your
Oh,
birthday.
that's right. The supportive energy from the Aquas. Well needed.
We'll see that and more, all that on Leading Out Loud.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
And you can thank me for covering your astro. Yay, hello, welcome to Leading Out Loud, the show where psychic mediumship and astrology collide in a horrible jackknife on your local highway. Hello, I'm psychic astrologer Sensei Christopher Oteki, aka the Sensei to SiriusJoy.com, and I am joined by no other than
Scott Cruz, psychic medium and mentor. How you guys doing this morning?
Yeah, sorry, scheduled that for you. And it's the dawn of the age of Aquarius, man. We're in the break of Aquarius. We entered in this week. The sun conjoined Pluto. My first question to you is like, do you feel any different this year coming up to your birthday? Because it is a powerful Pluto year.
I mean, I don't know if I feel different. It might take some time, you know, because we had it in Aquarius and it came out. So I felt it when it first initially went Pluto into Aquarius. And then when it stepped out, then I started feeling a lot of heaviness and tiredness.
Oh, really?
So,
But Pluto, yeah. Well, have you had any kind of do you feel better when Pluto enters into Aquarius? Because I've noticed that Aquarius is kind of perked up with Pluto.
I perked up initially, yeah, and then now I'm feeling more of a perk. Like I feel more of like I want to get this done, like how I want to express my voice, how I want to express my work, how I want to elevate my work. So I'm getting a lot of that kind of inspiration coming right now, and so really being on like how I want to enhance my channeling abilities. So I've been feeling more of that, I would say, push, you know, the past couple of days now, and more of a vision of how I want to, you know, communicate, you know, with my audience and clients and all that great stuff into the world.
Talk about it. Well, first of all, I'll just set up the show. This show, we're actually doing the Self-Love Manifesto, everyone. Because when the sun is in Aquarius, the earth is in Leo, which means we're manifesting love this time of year, the seeds we planted in the summer. But first, we're going to talk about our psychic surf report and the astrology going on. Now, diving in, like I said, the sun is in Aquarius, and this time Pluto has joined the sun and will remain there for some time. I'll have to get the exact dates from my researcher, Erica. But it will be there, and that means that every year, energetically, we are forced to go up and up in vibration, which basically means that the floor goes to the higher level. So it's not that we get pulled up, it's that we get pushed up from the bottom. And what Pluto does is sort of cut off all the bad habits or outdated habits of that step number. Right now, Pluto's at step 1. Which means that we are being basically instructed by Pluto or forced by Pluto to love ourselves higher and love ourselves some more. So the bottom of self-love has been taken up. But there's other things going on this week that sort of supports it. We have Mars sextiling Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. And that means that as you sort of get lifted up or as you come out of your sorrow or your self-love issues, you ought to be then coordinating and making changes about what your life can be. And we have the Grand Master step 4 tomorrow. Anytime the step number adds to a 4, it's a Grand Master. By the way, Scott here is a Grand Master, step 13, net 4. So, you know, we casted him. Yay. He's thrilled about that. But this week is going to be this combination of kind of smooth sailing, but feeling like you have to love yourself more. Or it could be the opposite, Scott. It could be that you want more in life and you realize you're going to have to love yourself more to get there. And we'll talk about our manifesto a little later. So energetically, you know, have you, you know, with your viewers, you got a show tonight every Thursday. Literally, you had last Thursday night, the sun was in the last degrees of Capricorn. I found that the last degrees of Capricorn sucked. Last week was really hard.
Yes. I mean, I had a sinus infection, the heaviness, and I feel like it was a purge. You know, both an energetic purge, kind of a physical purge, and I'm like, all right, I guess my pillow needs me a lot more now than it did before. So I actually took the time to like recalibrate, reset. I always say in moments like that, it's a time to like the calm before the storm, get prepared before things start moving. Because I say 2025, great year of movement, and to coincide with the self-love, why it's necessary. Because I've been feeling like psychically that 2025 is going to start. We're going to start awakening the true divine feminine, and that's what my show is tonight about awakening the divine feminine. And that's all about nurturing, self-nurturing, nurturing of others. And the only way you can really truly nurture somebody is when you understand how to nurture the self. So, and that's very appropriate for, Pluto entering Aquarius as well, as understanding how to self-preservation, how that expands to nurture others around in the collective. So I think it's time that we start really kind of understand what the true divine feminine is. I feel like it's been out of whack for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, 26,000 years. From what I understand,
Yeah.
Atlantis was a divine feminine culture. It was
Yeah.
all priestesses and goddesses. They saw us men as sex and work slaves. I'd like to go back to that. But energetically, this is like, ironically, when Pluto comes into Aquarius, which is the dawn of Age of Aquarius, by the way, y'all. People always ask, when is the Age of Aquarius? Well, from what we can tell, about 80 years from now, about 80 years. So our generation are the pilgrims, like Pilgrim's Rock. We're the ones that are going to set up for the foundation of the Age of Aquarius. Our generation is a generation that will shift, start to shift things in that direction. And then, I don't know, my great-grandchildren, I'm not sure, my great-grandchildren would be that first to inherit that age. And we'll have to, also, as we get Dylan Maven on here, the design Maven, because he's a human design expert, and he was telling us about how in February of this year, apparently, according to human design, we're going to kind of have this weird removal, or the beginning of the removal of the root chakra.
Interesting.
He says, according to human design and Ra, the creator, we move from a root chakra basis to a solar plexus heart chakra basis, which is also a fundament. And he's talking about also that there's something called the raves, that any baby born after February, probably when Mars goes direct, February 25th or so, could be a rave. And a rave child is one that is already ready to take their shirt off and dance all night. No, I'm kidding. It's actually a baby that has all
The glow sticks too,
they come out of the womb. Yeah, but I remember that. But no, ultimately, the generation that is already like plugged in to the Age of Aquarius, like they're waiting for it. They didn't want to come in according to their contract until it was there. So they come in early. They will be the parents and grandparents of the new era.
That's great, actually. It's awesome. I mean, I think we kind of need that solidification, to human our species evolution. So,
Totally. So but that's interesting. It's like, so you and I have to go through the pain and struggle of ascension, right? Where we're born low vibration, and then we have to pick ourselves up to a higher vibration, which has sucked. Going back to our topic last week sucked so bad. I was tested on anything I tried, any mistake I made in the last 15 years, I made again. Like one more time for old sake. And I was challenged in everything I was leading. It was challenged in lifestyle. So basically, if you know your astrology chart, all my sixth house for me was challenged in a big way. And it was really tough to get through. So it was almost like a final test of Pluto exiting Capricorn is what I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've been purging a lot too. I mean, you've been resurfacing karma, like, and you've been also like hitting home with the self-love, the health, and so it's like I feel like Spirit's been reconstructing you for the past few months, But I always feel like in order for us to start new, we got to be rebranded, and resolve that karma. And when we resolve that karma, we do become a new version. We're rebranded, and we got to figure out, shit, what does that feel like? What does that rhythm feel? What is that positioning? So, I think I've definitely been seeing that with you, definitely that rebranding and resolving a lot of that and reconstructing. And so I think the self-love manifesto that we decided to do today as a topic is fitting for the times, but also in our both individual lives too. So it's definitely coming from our heart, what we're talking about too today.
Yeah, and speaking to my observation of you, we've got pictures, so you better pay. No, I'm kidding.
What? Pictures of what?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. No, I do notice Scott, like Jolly Scott versus Cranky Scott. Like I've noticed, like Pluto in Aquarius, he like pops up. You do kind of pop up. I'm surprised because Pluto hit Capricorn. So all you Capricorns out there, y'all are so effing stubborn. Like holding the ground, holding the mountain. Most Capricorns I saw had to be rolled over by Pluto. They lost everything, their job, because they resisted. But the Aquas are like, oh, I dig this shit. Like they just changed their tune. Like every Aqua I know has perked up. I've seen Aquas open their heart up more. Like I'm seeing them, smile and things. I'm just kidding. They're kind of in the room looking at you like a weirdo. And seriously, Aquas have sort of been in the corner looking at you. Now they're engaging. I've noticed. I think it's because my theory is because protecting your heart.
Yeah, but we're being heard now because the thing is, I think with aquas we say things, we'll feel like, oh yeah, whatever, and then like months, years go by, like, oh, the aquas are right, and then we don't get any recognition. I think now we're finally being heard now because it's fitting with the time. So I think that's allowing us to be more open because now we're being considered by what we're saying. Because I understand, maybe it's just being psychic too, that I would say things that wouldn't just register with people. Even in sessions, I'll give a prediction like I would never do that, and then they come back a year later, they're doing it, right? And so I just think that we've been so ahead, it wasn't relating. But I think now, people have caught up to that cycle of humanitarianism and all that self-love energy that now it's making sense what we're saying. So I just think it caught up in time, not to sound like we're overly progressive, but it's just kind of what it feels like. We're all on the same page now to be in the aqua vibe.
Okay, so the DJ's finally playing your tune, and you're gonna dance finally. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Well, here's something. Aquas are progressive. I mean, Aquarius is the only energy in astrology that sees into the future. And I think it's because it's the waveform.
Is it
so you
really?
can just kind of follow the wave. Yeah. I mean, people have psychic ability, but the
Right.
sign itself is designed to see in the past and the future.
Like
It,
naturally.
it is an elevator vibration. You go down the vibration, you go in history. You go up the
Right.
vibration, you go into the future.
Right.
And also you can go higher in dimensions and lower in dimensions. It's ruled by Uranus, which is actually spinning on its side, ironically, because depending on how you hit Uranus, you're knocked down or you're knocked up.
Right.
And then you're pregnant without a husband. No, I'm kidding. But you actually, so it's a breakdown, breakthrough energy. So if you're
Yeah.
approaching Uranus from the wrong direction, in other words, you're coming from the wrong place. If you're coming from the wrong place, and that means, and this is great. This happened naturally just now. If you're not coming from your heart, you're knocked down. That's how
Right.
Uranus works. If you're coming from your heart, you're ascended up.
Right.
And so it is the breakdown, breakthrough energy, which is why it is the ruler of revolution. Typically, when you have revolutions on the planet, like the United States Revolution, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the U.S. Revolution.
Right.
Right, that was the last time we declared the revolution with Pluto and Capricorn at 27 degrees, and then we actually won the American Revolutionary War on Pluto at 4 degrees, which will be tomorrow. But Pluto won't be
wow.
at 4, but the sun will be at 4 tomorrow. So
Right.
the first revolutionary degree, it ended.
Interesting. It's
Yeah,
interesting
isn't
because
that
I have
fascinating?
this, but I had this like latest zeal to like revolutionize spirituality. I don't. It's just like coming out. Like I need to like speak about these things and bring it down to earth. And so I'm letting spirit kind of guide me on that. But I've been feeling that kind of revolutionizing energy in a sense too. But that also means that there will be some sort of revolutionize, at least when in the thought leading movement and spirituality. I feel like that is coming too. So I definitely want to
Yes.
be a part of that as much as possible.
Well, you're a Grandmaster 13, so in our system, you would lead that. That you would be a leader, and you feel the right to push the envelope. I mean, I think when you're a Grandmaster in Aquarius, it means you have 4 degrees, 13 degrees, or 22 degree Aquarius. And just to plug Robbie Hunt, she's a 22. We actually
Yeah.
have three Grandmasters working for us now at Serious Stories. So we'll be covering the revolution, kind of thing. So you in your aqua gut, since we're on this topic, how much revolution do you think it's going to be? Literally or whatnot. A lot of people are worried. For instance, I mean, the Planet Show, just so you know, shifted a fan probably in June, July.
Yep.
And that's when Jupiter goes into Cancer, and so people get moody as fuck. And I think their emotions get stirred. Another thing setting it for the revolution this year is Saturn and Saturn and Neptune both move into Aries, the war-bearing energy. So we're kind of setting up for that kind of
Interesting.
conflict. Now, I don't believe we're going to have anything like we did before, where we pick up muskets and we fight with each other, with guns. Because I feel like, karma is spiral. So,
Yes.
Uranus and Aquarius, let's say, was here, but now this time it's up here, right?
Right.
And the whole solar system has moved out of where it was too. So what do you feel as a revolutionary leader that the revolution will come down to?
The first thing is more I really feel like a spiritual shift, right? And kind of like a bit, because we have a lot of religious karma. A lot of us are in this timeline have a lot of past karmic religious karma from our previous incarnations that's kind of embedded in our psyche. So I think a lot of us have been purging that and we'll continue to purge that. And I really feel a lot of the revolution is tapping into the mystical realms and understanding the validity of the mystical realms, where psychics and mediums are no longer seen as cray-cray or invalidated. So I've been saying between like 2025 and in between 2025 and 2030, there's gonna be validity. Like, yes, it's possible to connect with spirits, possible to be psychic and intuitive. It's possible to connect with consciousness of those who crossed over. So I feel that's a revolution in itself, because if we're confirmed that we are soul consciousness, that controls the brain. I think scientists have a hard time deciding whether or not the brain creates consciousness or consciousness, is outside of the brain. I think it's going to be more proven that consciousness lives outside the brain and programs the brain, and that will give a lot of
Mm,
people access to realms of their own spiritual being, curiosity about spirituality, and different levels of where they've existed prior in their incarnation, which means they become more in tune to their karma. So
mhm,
just think of how much of that self-evolution will affect the collective. So
mm,
self-love to me is very, very important to understand. It's not just about looking yourself in the mirror and being like, oh, I love myself, I'm so pretty. It's not about that. It's saying,
mhm,
I love where I'm at. I'm putting love into my existence. I'm putting love into what I'm doing. I'm putting love into my body. And so and the more we become in tune to that, we can become more, the accessibility to spiritual realms become more accessible to us and more prevalent to us to see the different dimensionalities of our own incarnational experiences, but
mm,
also how it's, going and coinciding with the collective karma.
mm,
Right. And so to me, that's revolutionary, because when you become in tune to the self, I become in tune to the self fully, and everyone else becomes in tune to the self. We're all living our passions. We're
mhm,
expressing our soul purpose the way it's divinely orchestrated too. Imagine that on a collective scale. That's revolutionary to me.
mm.
So I think
Well,
people tapping more into that. And Christopher, I'm sure you've noticed, like, astrology now has become mainstream. This
oh yeah,
TikTok
yeah.
people, like,
With the
it's
kids,
becoming right with the kids, and
people
even
under
my
like 20. I mean, people under
yeah
30 are way into it. Like, I couldn't believe
yeah
it actually. I'm not when I can't believe it's like a light switch came on and switched timelines
right
because I, I swear to God, like 5 years ago, if I said I was an astrologer and asked them when their birthday was, they wouldn't even know their fucking sign.
right.
They'd be like, I think I'm that goat thing. I'm like, you don't even know
Right.
your exact. Seriously. And now I will be like, at an event you wouldn't expect, okay? Um, so that would not be something just non-spiritual at all. And I'll be like, what's your astrology? And they'll give me their rising sign and moon. Like they know the
Right.
three. I'm like, holy
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
So I have I've seen that. I mean, so you're basically saying that science will be our hero, and they'll have proof of the spirit. Basically, once again,
Yeah. Right.
maybe,
Right.
yeah, that's
Right.
possible. I
Yes.
believe in that. And I also believe people have are going to have memories pop on. I mean, I have clients now who never had any kind of visions. They'll tell me, and they're like, "I think I had a past life vision." Like they're
Right.
realizing and seeing the difference of that vision. My past life vision. By the way, if you guys haven't had a past life vision, I didn't have any past life flashbacks until age 44. Actually, until Uranus opposed Uranus, because there's this point in your chart where Uranus will oppose your natal Uranus
Yeah.
degree, and when that happened, that's midlife crisis. That's when you have sex with your secretary. But that's also when you feel like your life's not enough. But it opened me, and I started
Yeah.
having these sepia flashes in my third eye. And by the
Hmm.
way, in case people are wondering what it looks like, the Apple Vision goggles. Okay,
Oh
like
yeah.
like the where it has like Apple icons, and you're like double clicking with your eye and shit like that. It looks like that. When I get past life visions or a vision takes over, it's like there's a ghosted movie on top of my existing reality. That's what it looks like for me. And so
Hmm.
I'll see it on top, just like it was I was wearing Google goggles or something like that.
Yeah.
And I get a quick flash, and the other thing you get is all this knowing. So it's like a movie that plays really fast for me, and then
Hmm.
but I know what's going on in the scene, like I read the script.
Yeah. Well, see that, and I would say that's a side effect. Like when we tap into our past life incarnations, that's a side effect of self-love. Because when you want to
Mm,
understand where you reside on the soul level, those regressions will pop up. You'll have,
mm,
and again, for me, my experience was like almost like I had this. I was kind of guided through this, but I had that recollection. Like it was almost like I felt like I was there. When you recall a memory for
yes,
something happened like last week, and you have the century and all that,
right.
and you feel connected. I felt like with the past life regression, it was confirmed to me by
Mm,
other. I asked, my spirit guides for confirmation. I felt like I was crazy, and it was confirmed like crazily after the fact. And that's because at that time I was on the conquest. Like I want to know more about me on the soul,
mm,
and understand what the purpose really is. And so, yeah, that's a huge, I would say, result of diving into the self-love. And self-love is also about self-knowing. I think
mm.
people understand what self-love, knowing the self is self-love, like knowing what makes you tick, knowing where you come from, knowing your purpose.
It
These
certainly
things are
guides to
great.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it ignites it.
So
It's almost
tell
like a
us
side
just
effect.
I like to explain for people, laymen watching, what is it like in a past life regression? I've never done it because my guides have told me I am not allowed to be hypnotized. I'm not allowed. That's very firm order. You may not be hypnotized. So I get certain rules like that. So I'm never going to hypnotize myself and do it. Fortunately, I do get blinks. I mean, I get full on.
Hmm.
If you get a reading with me, which is unlikely because I can't get to it, but like, I will have past. I'll have flashes of your life.
Right.
and of your past lives, and I'll have the ones that are relevant, and I'll have a knowing about it. But what is it like in a past life regression, like being hypnotized? Just for those who might be curious.
Well, I did it through, this is going to sound funny. I did it through a process called auditing, which was through Scientology. Yes, I did it.
Oh, that's
But
right.
you said this before, God finds ways and spirit finds ways to use
Right.
any tool to get through to you. So,
Yep.
yeah, so I was connected to like a machine and it was just kind of guided through. And they didn't tell me, they said, kind of dive deep to what comes up to you. Because I had a past life regression before I decided to do that process.
Mm,
And it was, again, I felt the sensation. I was like you said, the Google goggles, like you kind of just
mm,
all of a sudden are transported. The imagination's in front of me, but
mm.
I felt it was me. I felt the
Yes.
location. I felt the time frame. I knew the time frame. I felt the
Mm,
location.
mhm,
I felt I was murdered, so I was stabbed in the chest 11 times.
mm,
I felt the sensation, like as if, when you cut yourself, you can remember what it feels like when you cut yourself. I knew what it felt like to be stabbed in my chest and to be
mm,
chased and all that stuff. So, and I felt the moisture in the church. I felt all those sensations. But the
mm,
one thing was the difference between imagination and recollection. I was
mm,
recalling this. I'm like, I felt this. I'm here. This is me. It wasn't like I was imagining something. I
mm.
would say when you're recalling something, it's way more vivid than imagination. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
a
Oh
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
confirmation. You know what I mean? It's like there's a certainty. So yeah, and I found out afterwards. I asked Spirit for like confirmation, and a friend of mine called like 2 days after that, that I haven't heard from in like a year, and she was teaching her class about the person who I was actually, was in the past life. She just was teaching her class about that. So I'm like, that's odd, synchronicity. I'm not going to say because I don't want to put it
Because
out
it's
there right
famous.
now.
I know. I was one famous person in history too, and I never tell people because it's so in our industry it's so lame because everyone's Cleopatra and everyone's
Right, and that's why I'm just like I don't want to go through that because yeah,
right.
but those of us who are
But you
who are
know,
yeah, but
yeah,
those who are in the spiritual communities, we could it's obvious that we would be some sort of, and it makes sense why I was that
the
specific leader at
leaders.
that
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
I've always tried to
Hmm.
be a leader. In every past life that I know, I pretty much, I just can't sit still at home. So and you're right. Like for me, it's like you've got this. You get how do I put it? If you walk into a room and like, oh, Scott's my co-host and Adam's my director and Erica's on board, like you have that knowledge in the flashback. You have the knowledge of who the people are, what the
Yeah.
relationships are. You have a
Right.
knowledge of all the shit, like that he's mad at you because you slept with his wife. You know that stuff like in that moment too. So there's this a priori knowing, as well as a memory. And for me, it's just a flash, like a flash bulb goes off. That's it. I don't get a full scene. I just
Right.
get like one moment.
It also made sense why I had certain irrational fears in this lifetime. I was every time I
Right.
would go around blades, I'd be afraid of.
Mm,
I'd get this weird sensation in my chest before that past life. I had this weird
mm,
like I didn't want to be around it, and I always felt like naked on my chest when I wear shirts. When I got a tattoo, I'm like that feels better, like if it was covering something up. So
oh.
it was all these things started to make sense to me.
Mm,
And again, no one told me. It
yeah.
was revealed to me because of my experience and then how just other messages came in and correlated. So I tell people like when you dive into self-love and dive into want to know more about yourself, that is part of being self-love, is knowing where did you fucking come from and
Yeah.
what's your
Yeah.
purpose now and the mission, your mission statement. Now I understood even then in my 20s what my mission statement really was because of what it was in that past lifetime. It matches everything in
Mhm.
this incarnation. It's so
Yeah,
relevant. So
it does.
yeah.
And you're right. Like, first of all, the universe also always provides me with proof, like outside of
Right.
me. And it's
100%.
uncanny. You can't believe it. Like, you cannot believe
Right.
it. So you were talking about a friend calling you. Same shift with me. Like, I had this past, I have this past life that I'm telling jokes. I thought I was a court jester. Then, like, from another person, she's like, no, you were a king. And then, like, 3 days later, I do a reading trade with someone like you who I'm working with. Same thing. You were a king. Like, the universe just keeps resonating, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
You can't deny it. It's undeniable. I think I have undeniable evidence for one because I'm a leader in this field. But there's actually what I'm starting to realize is you have an Earth mission. Like I've been on the same Earth mission every lifetime. Every
Right.
lifetime I'm doing the same Earth mission. I'm doing it again now. It's to rebrand myself.
Mhm.
Really, just to get the people to wake up has been my Earth mission, and to transform the knowledge. I also,
Yes.
by the way, won't talk about this. We'll wait for another show. I have knowledge of the planet I came from before this, and the system
Mhm.
I came from, and I'm like meeting people like colleagues from that planet. I
Right.
even have people come to me and go like, "I think I worked with you on that planet." I'm like, "Holy shit, man!" Like, yes, what we do? So it's getting galactic. And one of the
Yeah.
theories about we have chakras above the head. I'm sure you know that, right?
Mhm.
Chakras
Yeah.
above the head.
Yeah.
So every time the human race discovers a planet, the chakra activates. So when we discover the next planet, the next
Mhm.
chakra will activate.
Yeah.
And and from what I understand, the next chakra I'm not sure which one. We'll have to bring on a chakra expert. But
Yeah,
but one of these two above us or our head is our galactic chakra that connects us to all the planets that we are associated with.
makes
And I
sense.
think mine's blinking, man. Because I'm starting to get weird alien, not weird, but just it's not even alien. In heaven, they're all just the same light. They
Sure.
just like choose a costume and choose a life. But I'm starting to get galactic stuff now. That's so since Pluto's moving to Aquarius, I will report, getting back on track of the topic. I've noticed that since Pluto's getting Aquarius, my psychic awareness became like high definition. So
Mm-hmm.
like I'm sharpened, I'm focused, like it's like super focused. And
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly I'm getting signals from galactic stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
and associations and meeting them and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about how Pluto and Aquarius has sharpened you. I think that Pluto makes you feel badass. It's a Scorpio planet. So it's almost like you suddenly, are more well endowed, for men. Anyways, I'm not sure
That's
how it goes
great.
for women. But you're walking around like you are, you know what I mean? And so it gives you this kind of strength and just badass energy that I
Yeah.
think I've seen Aqua's straighten up from that. It's like y'all aren't really fighters, your lovers not fighters. And so I think you kind of feel badass now from Pluto. And as a result, I'm seeing Aquarius is, come out of the closet, admit that they're comedians, basically tell people the truth, that sort of thing. Why are you laughing at that? You are, yeah.
But
That's
it's
how I
true. No,
do it.
it's true. But I think it's a very attunement, And I
Mm,
said 2025, like it's gonna come with its duality too, though,
mm,
So that's why we have to preserve self love right now and stay solid because there's gonna be a lot of chaos this year too. I've been
a lot.
predicting that for 2025, and I love you said that about June, July has that war energy. I think I said on our podcast I saw another war this year, and then we
Really?
had the
Like a world
fires.
war? Like a war between nations like Ukraine and.
Yeah, not with us, but another with nations, and I'll get more specific on that on another show. We do more predictions again, but so I don't
Mhm.
want to go derail from self love, but I think it's important during this time because of the chaos that we are focused on our self foundation and knowing the self. Because I feel there's gonna be a lot of misinformation, a lot of truth side by side this time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so we're gonna need that discernment in that case. So a lot of
Yeah.
movement, but that also brings a lot of that chaos too. And even though with the fires, when you predict stuff, people think like we feel good. Like I hate the fact that we predict stuff like that because like I
Mm,
saw that and you see it happening, and you don't feel good about it because you see people's houses on fire, and so
mhm.
and other things. I just want it to be more of a preparation for people, and understand that yes, we're in this very challenging, dense reality, and those of us who are incarnated in this timeline, Christopher, we've all been something magical in our past incarnations to be in this amount of density, right? And so I
Mhm.
really feel like if we're focusing on that evolution and as we're evolving, then we can understand and maneuver through these challenges. You can't get away from it. You can't pray it away. The earth and the species is evolving, but we'll know how to maneuver and find the pathways through it when we're focusing on our purpose. That's where we have our power.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on the survival aspect of it in the sense that we're being cut off. I mean, one of the things about Pluto and Capricorn was, over the years, Genghis Khan, George Bush, they all try to rule from the top down, right? Like, and top down rulership has been, the stupidity of who we are, as humans.
Yeah.
We were actually very tribal, bottom up. Everything in nature is bottom up. A
Hmm.
baby is born one cell, two cell, three cell, bottom up.
Right.
And so we create this top down kind of consciousness. And so as a result of top down leadership, people identified themselves with the top,
Right.
right? Way beyond where they are, not out of their context. In some cases, young kids wanting to be rich and famous when they don't even know how to spell. It's like you
Right.
want to be the top and you can't even fucking spell. So it's like, and that kind of association and addiction to the top is why people freak out when they hear a bad headline. You're still
Right.
addicted to connecting to the top. So I think what happens is the top becomes chaos, right?
Right.
By the way, Donald Trump, he's a 22 Gemini. So
Mm.
he's a shift show. 22
Right.
is the number of Aquarius. He's an Aquarian Gemini. So
Mm.
he shakes things up. So
Hmm.
I think what's happened is the universe is saying, no, it's bottom up. You've got to find your power here and then choose whether or not you want to give it to someone else or share it with someone else. And so That's the lesson that has to happen, I think.
Well, sure. And I think people misunderstand the evolution phase, not just
Right.
in this lifetime, but their previous incarnations. So, like,
Mm,
that's why I've been very vocal about like making sure people understand true manifestation, because we just can't all of a
mm,
sudden just manifest what we want when we have a karmic resolve we have to figure out, or how we're evolving. We can't go from here to there, right? And so,
yeah.
I've been saying, especially about the new year, instead of new year, new you, how about your new year, your next tier? What's your next step this year? What's your evolution from where you were at? We can't pretend like everything we've done in our past, and especially in this lifetime, goes to hell because we don't like things. It's like, it's
Mm,
important. We need to carry that past and evolve from it. And I think people are so like here to there, A to Z, like you were saying, and I think that's kind of created fragmentation, both with spirituality, right, and both with
yeah.
how people are evolving, or even what they're even wanting, actually. So,
Right. Yeah,
you know,
totally. Well, it's interesting, and we're going to see a lot of it. In fact, actually, it's time to get, I think, to our tools. So Scott and I are
yeah,
focusing on the tools of self-love today, because that is the mantra. Pluto's at step one, Aquarius. That is a commandment from all Scorpios on the earth that you've got to love yourself, including Scorpios. You got to do it too, which means that we have to disconnect from whatever we've been, sucking off of for our power, and find our power on the inside. That's the way we were designed. But first, a shameless plug. We're talking about the year of 2025. Well, folks, I have outlined it from A to Z. It's called the Countdown 2025 webinar. I just did it last weekend, was it? Boy, time is really escaping me. And this is a 2.5 hour webinar on video, along with handouts and dates and basically spiritual roadmaps of what to do and what not to do. I can kind of give you a premise of it. I can explain it in simple terms. And this year I got it really simple. Okay, got it on. I get them better every year. You can find out more at senseiChristopher.com. SenseiChristopher.com. If you are a Serious Joy subscriber, you can enjoy a $25 discount, which you'll get the code in our services. And I think nothing will do more than to run this promo. Adam. Yay. That was quantum. Thank you, everyone. It's at senseiChristopher.com. You're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be a staple of your year. So, on to our topic of the week. Pluto's conjuncted the sun the past Tuesday. It was Tuesday, by the way, when the conjunction happened. And so we thought it's time to lead out loud by helping you create your own self-love manifesto. And I think we should get into why self-love matters in the first place. We've done a little research here. We're getting actually some wonderful people helping with us. A study published in Psychology and Psychotherapy Theory, Research and Practice found that self-love is a significant contributor to increased self-esteem and overall emotional well-being. High self-love leads to more adaptive coping strategies, which in turn enhance mental health. In fact, here's the statistic. Participants who focused on self-love reported a 40% improvement in overall mental well-being, including increased self-esteem and emotional stability. Does that resonate with your intuition, Scott?
Yeah, and I want to say one thing too, because there's a lot of people that are withholding from self-love because they think, well, if I put all the focus on myself, I'll be narcissistic, or, I'll be selfish and self-centered. I'm like, no, true self-love is that you actually find the inner strength and it just naturally gets shared with other people, right? Narcissists don't love themselves. That's why they're narcissists, because they don't have that
Right.
self-love and that self-confidence. So I find a lot of people are afraid of diving to self-love. It's like, I don't want to be that selfish. I don't want to be that self-centered. I'm like, to be centered with yourself is a good thing. The people who tell you're self-centered are the ones who are selfish that need you to do for them and the other way around. So yeah, I really think that it is, focusing on the self-love does bring out that confidence, the true confidence, not the arrogance, because I think people are afraid of being arrogant, but the true confidence. And that confidence means that you understand your power and how you can express that love and share it with others. So yeah, I totally agree
The
with
heart
that.
is not arrogant. Look,
Right.
babies are so cute. They teach you a lot of stuff. And like, you give a baby something num num, you give them some food they like, and they will be like, the first thing they'll do is share it with you.
Yes,
When
exactly.
you have when you really have genuine self love in your heart, you want to share it. There's no
That's right.
okay. And on SeriousJoy.com this season, I think we're gonna get a new ego this year, which I call the WeGo, and we'll go into whatever. So we're going from ego to WeGo, and
Cool.
what that means is I feel like the new ego that's being born in April or in Aries it includes everyone else. Like, so for light workers or people who've been low self-esteem, the Wego says you must now include yourself, right? And for assholes, the Wego says you must include the person you're being damaging to. So I feel this is a new based system now. But we have some more statistics here actually on resilience. Speaking of ego, research from here we go. Research from the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology showed that individuals with higher self-love, which involves self-compassion, that's another component of we'll talk about, are better able to cope with negative events in life, such as stress or failure. In fact, the statistic was self-compassion was linked to 30% improvement in emotional resilience during challenging life circumstances. And, self-compassion is a weird, interesting thing. I'll tell you, the way I define it is you literally have to like sit there and baby yourself like, it's okay. In fact, to me, the magic words of self-compassion is it's okay. It's okay. So, because the mind wants to throw in a terror bomb. Like, oh my God, we're going to run out. We're going to be evicted. Like, it's okay. We're evicted. We'll be outside. It's okay. Who cares? I mean, we can get along. You just have to like diffuse the mind's bullshit and just say it's okay. That's basically, everything is okay. It's going to be okay. And so it is. It's kind of the way it goes.
Well, because then you dive into that power, and that self power is something that it's there. You can't really articulate it really, because like you just know that you can learn from where you're at and where you're going. So you're like, if something were to come my way, we'll figure it out. Like you have that inner confidence that it's just a learning curve,
Yeah,
and so
it is. Yeah,
that makes sense that it would increase your ability to to dismantle any type of problems, or you would know that, well, I've resolved this, so then I can resolve that too. Let's do it. That makes complete sense to me.
to me, compassion also, someone defined it this way. I can't remember, but it's like it's bringing God's perspective, which is I made everything, so I don't give it's okay. Like God doesn't give a shit. You can make another one just like it. Like really, if you study the spirit, and so in that moment when you're feeling bad or judging yourself, you just bring in that God perspective, which is like you can do no wrong, you cannot die, who cares, kind of thing. In fact, we had on my show last week on Namaste Today Live, we had a person who channeled Saint Germain. And I asked him, I'm like, so how did he ascend? Because what did he do as a human to ascend?
Right.
And he answered something to the effect of, as soon as Germain just decided that he was only focused on one thing, which is that he loves himself, and everything is good and always will be good, the goodness, then he was able to ascend. Like that was so it seems like self-judgment and a lack of self-love is like what keeps us ball and chain tied to the earth. I don't know about you, but I think these clients are like, this is my last lifetime. And I'm just like, yeah, sure. Because the whole session is like, all they're talking about is how bad they are. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. You cannot call it your last lifetime if you're still calling yourself fat.
Right.
At least not now, you're not that perceptive. So we have some history. Looking back in history before the church, Romans similarly to how modern self-love practices work, encourage taking breaks. The Roman festival of Saturnalia, which I think is based on Saturn, which is normally around the winter solstice that we now celebrate Christmas, honored by the god Satan, and encouraged relaxation, role reversals, feasting, and enjoyment. The festival allowed people to temporarily let go of their social responsibilities and indulge in pleasures, contributing to personal joy and well-being. Historians estimate that there were 150 to 175 days of public holidays. 175 days of public holidays in some years during the Roman Empire. We obviously don't get that many in our modern life, but we can find ways to add self-care and self-love into our schedules, including watching Leaning Out Loud every Thursday live. You're gonna put the plug in while you go on a walk or taking time to meditate. So
great job, Erica.
The Romans, when in Rome act like the Romans. But they had a lot of free time because they had manufacturing and things like that. So interesting. What's interesting is that's what Saturnia is what the Christian church put Christmas on. Yeah, they squatted Christmas on it. But I want to make a distinction here because self-love. We have a rule of Serious Joy. Self-love is not outside of you ever.
No,
right?
Of course not.
That's a misconception. So it's like, I went to I bought myself a mani and a pedi, and I got myself some clothes. Those are all outside you. They don't count as self-love. Self-love is only within the containment of you, privately with you. That's it. That's the self-love we're talking about. So yeah, you take care of your body, that's loving you. And yes, you eat vegetables, that's loving you. But I think the most remarkable acts of self-love are in the most smallest moments, right? Where you're starting to worry about this, or you're starting to worry about that. And in that moment of starting to worry, that's when you bring in the love right there instead of the worry. So you replace self-criticism with self-love. You replace worry with self-love. You replace the things that, first of all, I think phase one of self-love is replace the negative acts against you, and with this self-love positivity, and you'll feel a difference right away. The last thing I just want to throw out there, I know I'm chatting my way today, but when you love yourself, when I first thought of this, I downloaded self-love, the idea. I've been talking about self-love for a decade, honestly, and it's because I went through a fifth house transit, Saturn in my fifth house. I don't know, when I was like, I don't know, it was when I had just started doing astrology on the air. And so I download, just like I download solutions for my clients, my guides are always telling me what the answer is. It's kind of a pain in the ass because it's like I'm either doing it or not, but I can't say I don't know. And they were telling me to start loving myself at that time. And when I did start loving myself, I couldn't believe that when I actually did it, I actually felt better. I was like, what? Doesn't my inner self know I'm bullshitting myself? My point is, like, when you do it, you will actually feel better. It's amazing. It actually works.
Well, and the thing I think people also don't understand, self-love doesn't mean getting things. It's about becoming the person you want to become. It's not what you are, it's who you are. So I think that many people associate that like, oh, I don't have a relationship, so there's just something wrong with me. Or I don't have this house, something wrong with me. It's like, what's the person you want to become? Do you want to become a person that's dependent on those things? You want to become a person who's like, doesn't need to be dependent on conditional things. So when we focus on that aspect, that's the true self-love of that power we have, then we get those things that we want. And so we should be focused on it. And that's what I think when you focus on being the person, because I like to focus on that no matter what condition I am, if I'm bound and gagged, no one can take my imagination away, right? Even if I'm in a dire circumstance, I'm a slave, it's like they can't take away my imagination, they can't take away my creativity. So I understand within me, that is where the joy, that's where the goodies are, the diamonds are, is in that imagination. And so we really try to develop that we can be in a situations to where we can be the person whoever we want to become in the situations, and then we become really in tune to who we are, right? Like you said before, and more confident, more, I would say, attuned to preserving ourselves in that sense, because we have that power, and then helping others do the same, And so we see a lot in our society, especially with online, people trying to disempower others. To me, that's reflection that they don't have self-love in themselves, because people who love themselves encourage others to love themselves too.
No, it's true. And
Just like successful people encourage people to be successful. They don't judge them. They don't, say it's cringe. Like, well, they're following their dreams. And then I saw a quote today too, where a guy was saying that, people who are, posting videos, sharing their, creating their content are not the cringe, because they're chasing their dreams. Those who are critiquing those people are the cringe. So
not our viewers. He didn't mean it.
Right, not our viewers, no. But I think we understand, like, people who are actually doing for themselves, and people find that cringy is because they're not doing for themselves. They're just expecting things.
You bring up a good point. So here's what happens. Sometimes when you start loving yourself, people turn on you, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And that's because their inner child is jealous that your inner child's getting attention and theirs not. So when you start to really perk up, you will lose one or two negative Bettys, because they're jealous that they can't do it, and they, whatever.
And not just that, but not just that, Christopher, because they're upset because you're not giving to them anymore.
Oh, you've cut off their supply.
Step zero, you set those boundaries, you cut them out, and you're like, oh, they're not part of that boundaries anymore. So you're going to lose a lot of people at step zero.
You do, actually. You do. And when you stop feeding those to people, and the other thing is you have more energy, when you stop, giving the love instead of, and this actually brings another point that is important. When you give yourself self-love, there's actually two steps, step 1 and step 6. Step 1 is you love. Step 6 is that you receive, right? So a lot of people don't receive the love. They don't take it to heart. And that's because because they're bad at boundaries. And so instead of saying, no, I don't want the food, they just shut their mouth and don't let the food in. It's a 2-step process. So you have to say, I love me, Chris. And then you have to kind of flip over to you and be like, and take it in to your heart, because if you don't do that inhale of the heart, it could just kind of build up. Kind of like when you say, Scott, you're looking fantastic, and Scott's like, I don't know, like they block that like love you give them. And so watch for yourself for where you block love even from yourself. For me, it was like, this is stupid, this is bullshit. Like my mind was literally blocking my attempts to love myself too. So that's like a second inner battle issue, I think, that happens.
Oh, totally. Because to me, I wouldn't receive love because I felt like people had something up their sleeve, and like, oh, they're just kissing what they want, because of my past trauma, right? And so we do have to, like, step 1, come from the heart, right? Be in that Leo sense when it comes to receiving compliments, and like,
not the mind. I mean, when you say that, not the mind, the heart. Yep.
The heart, exactly.
And so, like, where else could you come from? The mind. Sometimes people are just mental.
Right, exactly. And that's a distinction too, to understand that the heart doesn't question, it doesn't process, it just knows, right? It
Yes,
just responds, it just
it is.
feels. It doesn't like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't know, maybe. That's all brain. So we can decipher.
Mm-hmm.
Heart is like, am I a great person? Yes. It
Right.
doesn't process. Your brain will process, but your heart's like, I deserve it. It's
It does say
clear.
yes right away,
Yeah.
and then you'll see if you observe yourself, which is part of this whole process. You got to step back and start watching what's going on inside of you
Yeah.
instead of watching what's going on outside of you. Like, quit watching people in the world. Watch what's going on. You'll feel your heart say yes. Then you'll see your mind go fuck off, or whatever. You'll see the mind, which is trainable. The mind is trainable, which is what brainwashing is, and it's been trained. Your ego's been trained to hate you. Organized religion trained us to hate ourselves, and so that training has to be retrained also. Yeah.
Well, that's what identifying again. Step 3, your emotions, right, Christopher?
Yeah.
That's when you pay
Yeah.
attention to those emotions because that's energy's emotion, right? So you
Yeah.
start understanding, well, I feel a certain way. If you feel deprivation, pay attention to that deprivation. Ask yourself, do I deserve deprivation? Do I deserve to like shut down that love? And so we should be also very conscious of those emotions and where they're stemming from. Because we have a
Yeah.
lot of you and I have been through a lot of trauma in this incarnation, a
Just
lot.
working
And
with you
so
alone. Just kidding.
right, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
just smelling you is enough
Oh
trauma for
yeah.
me. But
Yeah.
but but we've been through so much trauma, and so it's like we have a lot of those patterns that we're intercepting our receptivity to self-love. But when we
Yeah.
look at the emotion, like my emotion is if someone has something up their sleeve and they're complimenting me, it's like, well, why would they? Can people just generally love? And so
Right.
so I think you paying attention to those emotions and understand that is just energy emotion and ask yourself why, you know.
Yeah. It's just a readout of where you are right now. I'm going to segue to ancient Greece just as interesting. In ancient Greece, there was a concept of kalakoakia. I'm not sure. We'll have to pronounce it later. Kalokalathia was a term used in
I
ancient
see.
Greece that referred to the harmony of physical beauty and integrity. So back then, you were in integrity if you were beautiful. This concept suggests that cultivating a beautiful body through physical training and a beautiful soul through
Yeah.
integrity and virtue were equally important. Equal. The
Right.
Greeks believed that taking care of the body and the soul were forms of self love, with the idea being of a balance of both aspects. You can love yourself and then embody that love by using the step system to create your own self love manifesto. And that's what we're kind of
Mm,
leading here to. We're going to lead into so a serious joy we have called 11 Steps to Serious Joy. This is basically our approach to bringing you into your heart and manifesting your dreams come true. It's worked. I've proved to myself in my own life. You don't have to believe me. Try it for yourself. But we thought today we'd kind of go through like maybe the first 4 steps and sort of talk about what needs to happen first. And then you can find the rest of each sign for serious joy. So basically, what I found in my research of human soul is that the soul goes through steps into
mhm,
manifestation and incarnation. It's really the architecture of incarnation and
mhm,
how spirit goes from spirit to solid. That's what we discovered and then what we teach. So step 0 is the first step. Basically, when you're incarnating, this is where you separate from God consciousness and form the human. And basically, this is boundaries. Boundaries. So boundaries are so important. I found in all my research, if you don't set a boundary for when you want that, to win the lottery, if you don't say, I want to win the lottery by May, the manifestation doesn't even begin. The universe doesn't give a
right,
shit. You have to
right.
have a start date and an end date. You have to have how much and how much not. And that's, 0 is a weird number. The Romans didn't even know 0. They didn't even know the
Mhm,
concept of 0. And the Mayans did, but the
mm,
mathematics and stuff, they didn't even know 0. So 0 is this idea to hold space in your mind, a bubble for what could be. And if you don't hold that
mhm,
bubble, if you don't hold that womb, then it's not going to happen. So the question is, where are my boundaries with self-love? And
mhm.
do I create space for self-love to nurture myself? So, I don't even know, do you do this? Do you have, what are your boundaries with self-love? Do you
My
have them?
boundaries of self-love is like I have to understand how much I'm exporting my energy to people.
Mm,
And a lot of
mm,
my boundary setting for the past, I'd say 5 years is because, I love to a fault too, and that can tend to make me agitated because I feel
mm,
like if I'm providing too much, then I shut down, I get
mm,
agitated. So the boundaries I had to set for myself is like understanding my limits to that. And I understand, even helping someone is divine, right? And so
mhm,
spirit will send you people that need help, but it wouldn't feel like a drag, or you wouldn't feel like your energy being pulled. You'd feel uplifted, you'd feel
mm,
empowered. And so I had to recognize that just because someone needs help, I just set the boundaries, doesn't mean I have to step in and help. So that was preserving my time, preserving my energy, preserving my craft that I've been building for decades, right? And so
mm,
we also have to appreciate our craft because I've been studying since I was a kid and so focused on expanding it. I don't just want to toss it away to anybody. So I had to learn that boundary. So
mhm,
so a lot of people have to set boundaries that they might be loving and giving too much to people. So the boundary is so much
mm.
of maybe
That's a
not
good one.
overstepping their own boundary.
Mhm.
you know?
So I'm a workaholic. I love it. I mean, I love what I do. I love it.
Mhm.
And I'm a pig. I just pig out on it. And I just do. I keep going until I can't go anymore. I fall asleep last night. I fell asleep reading, recording the pep talk. But so one of my boundaries has been, to before I start any job, like the next task, it's a boundary's a rule. I
Mhm.
must know how I'm going to love myself in the next scene because I call everything in life another scene. And this is a great movie to me. So I
Mhm.
must know what I'm going to do in this next scene to love myself. Like, and it's usually like, I'm not going to let this person get to me. Like a lot of times I go into a scene where there's maybe an asshole in the scene, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let this person get to me in this next scene. That's my self love boundary. I'm not letting them in. I don't care. And you know what? As soon as I declare it, usually out loud, leading out loud, say it out
Mhm.
loud, it's even more powerful when they do what they do. You know what ends up happening actually?
Mm.
Every time I say I'm not going to let this person get to me, they behave good. I don't know if I have
Right.
power of them. They behave good. I never even abusing it. It's
Right.
really interesting.
Yeah.
And to create space for self love and nurture myself, I suck at that. I'm actually not good. I mean, to me, like I don't know. I don't create enough space for it. Like I don't like in my calendar. There's no self love.
Mm.
Like it's not on
Mhm.
my calendar. Like I think that's where I need to go next. Actually, it's hard to break these habits. My ambition is because I love myself when I'm doing this. I love being me.
True.
And self love, by the way, is when you're in joy. If you are enjoying, you're loving.
Right.
You're loving yourself at that moment. You are in
Right.
joy.
Mhm.
INJOY. So,
Mhm.
everyone would say challenge. Create a space and time for you to love yourself. Put it in your calendar, and and then make a rule about it. Make a boundary about it. That's step
Well,
zero.
yeah, because setting those boundaries is actually preserving your heart, step one, right? And so you're
Right.
actually saying to
Exactly.
yourself, I can now feel the passion because like I was having a problem before, I was exporting too much, and so
Yeah.
now I understand how to preserve that, and so I can act truly from the heart. And sometimes, and you know this, Christopher, too. There's people that when you come from the heart, sometimes there's tough love.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
helping them, you might say, well, they need to know for themselves. So I need to take a step back, take my hands
Hmm.
off. And so when you come from the heart, truly, now it's not the 80s song, listen to your heart. I don't know, is
Good.
that heart or something?
That's a good one.
But when
Is
you
that
do
by
come from
heart?
your heart, like you really understand the justice of what
Hmm.
love is and
Hmm.
what people deserve, you know what I'm saying, without creating enabling energy. Because
Hmm.
some people are loving for the sake of loving, but they have all this kind of enabling energy, codependency issues, and they don't realize that. But coming truly from the heart, you understand, well, this person needs to learn, I need to take a step back.
Hmm.
And so you have that
You're right.
clarity. You know what I mean?
It's true. For those who are over givers and who are worried about what they will feel or what they will think, which is me,
Right.
if you are loving yourself on a regular basis, you don't have as much of a problem to draw the line with the other person
Right.
because you're like, well, bitches ain't loving themselves, so and you also in that self love are there for you in that moment because when I say no to a person, it hurts me. Like it
Right.
didn't used to hurt me, but I mean not hurt, but it's like and that part of that was because my love, I was basically getting love for myself by giving to others. Like I got off on the fact that I was a good man. I
Right.
got love on the fact that I did well for them. I took pride in the fact that I helped people, and I was actually, living off the vapors of giving, and that was where my love was coming from for myself. So I just achieved more, achieved more, and achieved more.
Right. But see,
But
the
if you,
side effect to you though
yeah,
with Chris, I don't mean to interrupt you, is that when you couldn't provide, you felt you would feel like disappointment, you'd be hard on yourself.
mhm. Oh yeah,
You know what
oh
I'm
yeah,
saying? Because you
oh
didn't set
yeah,
the boundaries. So you're like, oh, I couldn't. So I'm like, I'm flipping out because I was supposed to be there for them. And so like you would crumble, you'd crash because you felt
yeah.
like you couldn't show up and deliver. And so it
Hmm.
would spiral because it
And what
was
would they
outside
think?
of,
And yeah.
right. Right.
How would they feel? And I'd be up worrying about them. And quite often I was worried about someone who's an ass. And, they'd already moved on to another person to use. Like they didn't even
Right.
think of me. So,
Sure.
in hindsight. But the point is like, in that moment when here's a boundary for someone if you don't have one. When you're about to give something away for free, to earn something from someone, or even, live off the vapors, that's when you close down and take a moment to love yourself. Like that moment. Try to catch yourself in that moment. And that's the beginning. But you already
Mhm.
brought on. We move on to step one. Step one is Leo in the heart. Step zero, by the way, is ruled by Scorpio. Okay, obviously, they're the ones that can get anybody's pants. Step zero, they can get you naked. Step zero,
Mhm.
they tell you no, they mean it.
Yep.
Step one is Leo. So Leos live by self love, and this is why people are
Mhm.
jealous of Leos for the most part, because a
Yeah,
Leo does
we
love
did heart.
themselves, and they will sit there enjoying themselves. They're enjoying themselves, like you're like
Mhm.
Jesus. They're really getting off on that selfie, and they really genuinely are, and that's what they hold. They hold space for us. They're showing us this is how you do it, right?
Mhm.
The question is, do you even listen to your heart? And when you do, what makes you light up and honor it? So a lot of people go, I don't know how to listen to my heart. I don't know how. Like, I don't know where it is. That's common. Okay. It took me actually that whole Saturn in the fifth house transit for me to actually identify my heart vibrationally. And one little trick I teach at Serious Joy is the 5-2-1 method, which is if you need to talk to your heart, ask yourself a question, ask your mind a question, then ask your feelings a question. And once you ask your mind and feelings a question, there's only one person left to answer, the heart. So you ask your heart, and you will feel your heart answer. You will feel it. Another trick to getting into your heart, ask yourself, what do you wish could happen? Because only the heart can wish, because the heart is the only thing that's creative. The mind is not creative, and emotions aren't creative either. The heart is creative. So when you ask, what does your heart want? And you're like, I don't know, I can't hear my heart. Okay, what do you wish it was? And as soon as you ask that wish question, boom, the heart answers that question. So I think in phase one, to listen to your heart, you have to ask it questions all the time. You just keep asking it questions because it will respond to
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
How
And
did
it's
you
like we
find
said,
your heart, you cold
yeah,
bastard?
it's like we said before, we have to understand the heart doesn't process, it just responds, it knows, right? So it's like we said earlier that we have to identify the processing brain versus the feeling heart. And the heart it's what's true. And so a lot of times we don't want to know the truth either. So we kind of
No.
dismantle that. So
Yeah,
we have to be very much open, saying, I want to know what's true no matter what. And
that's true.
so identifying the dimensionality of brain, heart, one
Right.
processes, the other one feels. Yeah, it's an exercise.
It
It's
is.
you have to get used to that. And that leads again to step three, with is your emotions and
Step
what you
two, step
believe.
two. Yeah.
Or
As
step two,
soon as,
sorry.
so as
Yeah.
soon and these all build on each other. So as soon as you put out the space, the heart comes out. The heart doesn't want to come out unless it's safe. So that's
Right.
why you need boundaries. As soon as the heart comes out, you feel it. Step two.
You feel it.
You feel it. The heart is mostly through feeling, but it's also through direct knowledge. You can ask a
Yeah.
question and a picture will pop up in your head. It'll tell you. It'll speak to you. And sometimes it'll, say something. What's always is like when you're surprised by the answer. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a biggie. But so feelings. Now with feelings, this is more complicated because feelings are, first of all, these are all what we call states of awareness. So the 12 signs in astrology are really 12 states of human awareness. Humans have 12 ways of knowing that they're alive and conscious. Boundaries is the one that is zero and visible. The heart is the reason, and then emotion. Emotion is basically the reflection. What emotion is rear view mirrors to the car. God in the universe created mirrors all around you called emotion. And it's this part of consciousness that is reflecting back what's coming off and vibing off your aura. So a feeling is the sensation of the soul's vibration, recreated through chemicals called hormones in the bloodstream. Therefore, you have to have healthy feelings, because feelings, if they're harboring damage, trauma, pain, then they're not in a position to actually feel the heart. They block the heart. And this is one of the problems that people have, that we work hard on in Serious Joy. This is emotion that comes from the sign Cancer. Cancers rule emotion. And so the question is, can you feel your heart? And if not, what are you feeling? Because what you're usually feeling is a trauma. And then, basically, how do what does your heart feel like when you are loving yourself versus what it feels like when you're not? So you have to memorize the feeling of love, self-love, and memorize the feeling of self-abandonment, right? Those are the two directions, right?
Yeah, and so and I think those emotions lead to your beliefs. Like, what do I believe?
Oh
What do I
yeah.
feel is true? And that's the deciphering of, like, is this belief because of past trauma, or is this belief because I feel this, or is this something I've been carrying for whatever I've inherited from my families? And so I would, like we were saying before, like, trusting that emotion, because it's guidance to, is it heart based or mind based, right?
Right.
And so
It's a separate state of awareness. It's a
exactly,
reflection of, just like the moon reflects the sun's light onto the earth, it's a reflection. And you have to be okay with feelings. I mean, you have to realize that feelings they're like vapor. They get burned off. I avoided my feelings because I was afraid they'd never stop. Like, I was afraid if I myself feel depressed, I'll never stop. I'll go into a hole. So I block my feelings because I came from a Cancer mom who doesn't stop, right? Like, and so you have these weird beliefs about feelings, but really a feeling is meant to be experienced like a roller coaster. And once the feeling is gone, it's used up. Like, there's only so much energy for feelings. It gets used up. It can't continue without having another
right.
thing.
And people have to identify too, like we said, heart based, thought based. I understand the differences, but
Yeah.
also emotion versus feeling. Because people think, because they feel emotion, that's the feeling itself is a heart feeling. It's not. Emotion is just an energy emotion of what you've been thinking or what you believe in. Understand this is an emotion versus, but I feel it's an intuition.
Right.
And
It's a
so I think
reflection.
when you identify all that, then we know where we belong. Then we know where we
Exactly.
fit
Well, we
in.
got to go belief before. Step three is belief. So you
That's what we're
skip
talking about, beliefs. I'm trying to speed it up because I
Oh,
know
feelings.
we're
Okay. Are you trying to
trying.
skip steps? Oh, that's interesting.
No, no, no,
Skip
no.
steps.
I was saying we went through emotions, but it leads you to know what you believe because you follow that emotion. You know what you believe. You can start identifying if it's coming from a belief or from the heart and understand the processing, right? So
Right.
then we
Well, that's
get
it.
a chance to reconstruct those beliefs based on what we
Right.
truly feel, right?
Right.
Which then we understand where we belong because we've been able to construct. So no, I've been going in order. I'm
Let's
just
just,
trying to be speedy because I know we're over time.
what's our TRT? I don't know our time.
5 minutes.
We're at 60. Okay, so we got 5 minutes. We'll go a little over. So Scott's right. So then you go to belief. So you don't know what you believe until you feel, and this is one of the big misnomers of consciousness. Your mind has no fucking clue what you believe. Okay, you've been
Right.
fed beliefs, so that's actually top-down control. Belief is what you feel. Do you feel you can do it? Do you feel you're capable? Do you feel then you believe? So you have to have clearer feelings to be able to believe in something, and
Mm-hmm.
feelings lead directly to belief. And you can ask yourself and interview yourself about your beliefs. Do you believe? Do you believe you're capable? Do you believe you could be present? You would feel it if you believe it. You would feel that you could. You feel, and you can feel what's bullshit. We all feel a lie because we're using the same feelings to feel that it's a false belief. So you want to ask yourself if you believe in self-love in the first place, which you probably do if you ask yourself, and your beliefs must be in concert with the fourth, which is what
Mm-hmm.
Scott was jumping to, which
Mm-hmm.
is step four. We want to get to step four, which
Mm-hmm.
is Aquarius. This is the one where people have a hard time understanding. Once you believe in something, then you know where you belong. So if you believe you can be president, you belong being president. Belong consciousness is like a weird map that we're not smart at. Where in our consciousness, there's a place for everything. There's a time. You say there's a time and a place. That's Aquarius. It's the knowing where it belongs in the matrix and knowing
Mm-hmm.
what the vibe of that will be. So a lot of times, for this, do I feel I belong as president? And you'd be like, no, I don't feel like that's me. Do I feel I belong being married to this person? I do. I feel like I have a pull there. I feel I belong. Or like a little girl who's in the audience of a ballet at 5 years old. She's like, I belong on stage. I belong there. She knows it's her part. She knows it's her
Mm-hmm.
place in space time. So it's the belonging that humans are idiots at. It's the Aquarius
Yeah.
energy.
But I
Within
think
that,
Yeah, I think because people also misconstrue belonging with like a career or belonging with
mm-hmm.
like conditional purposes versus expression. Like, I feel like when you feel like you belong, you understand, well, I know I'm a person who's opinionated, or I know I'm a person that's creative, or I know I'm a person that's imaginative. We got to find out what the expression is. Then that turns into a physical condition. Many people trying to match their belonging with a condition. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what's kind of messing them up instead
It's
of
a
going back to
vibration. Yeah.
Right. Instead of going back into the heart, emotion, and feelings and beliefs and understanding, well, I'm actually a very expressive person, so I can utilize my voice. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
being a president, I want to be a poet, and so
Right.
they'll find the right expression based on what they feel, what the
Mm-hmm.
heart's thinking, what they believe to be true, and also where they truly belong based on that sense. Not so much about, I think people put the cart before the horse and the belonging. Well, I think maybe people have problems with step four.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
they do. There's a lot of reasons why. One is you have to
like,
be connected to your heart. Your heart's the only one that knows where you belong. Your heart.
right.
So if
Not
you're
what
shut
are
down the
you,
heart, you
who
don't know
are
where you
you?
belong. What's that?
Right. It's like not what are you, it's who are you? And then the what will come
Correct.
after that,
Yeah, and who are you as a Leo? I mean, is the heart Leo? So
Yes.
you belong what you long for. I long to be there. You belong there. I long for this. You belong there. But a lot of times the mind, see, the mind only knows what you've seen. It doesn't know anything else. It only has in the dictionary what it's seen. So when you say I belong being president, your mind's throwing a label on it. What you're really saying is I belong with that kind of vibration. I want to vibe like this person.
Exactly.
I want to
That
vibe like this guy on stage.
expression.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
And I like some
vibration that you're
comment.
identifying with.
And I like a commenter said, belong could be anything with a burger, a friend, a situation. That's very true because that's the vibration we're talking about. Like, I just feel like that's my expression for this energy to be
Mm-hmm.
social, to be imaginative, to be supportive. And so, yeah, I think once we identify the vibration, the energy, the
Yeah.
expression, then how we express it becomes more tangible.
Totally. And so once you've identified the big vibration, like I belong on a cruise ship or I belong this way, then you go in that direction, and then you start to get into the subtleties of the frequency. It's like
Mhm.
not quite a cruise ship. Maybe it's a yacht. Nah, not quite a
Right.
yacht. Maybe this.
Maybe it's not
You,
a bow.
you have
Maybe
to
just
kind of yeah.
right. Maybe I just need to be like to just be more in water. Maybe just need to cleanse and be more a part of it. More
Right.
bring more aqua in my life, right? And so
Right.
yeah. And I think many people get hung up about the actual condition. When it could just be representation, and sometimes that does come first. But we take a step back and we use the heart chakra to tune in to the belonging.
Mhm.
Then we can decipher.
Totally. You have
So
to kind of feel it out. And your mind's going to just
yeah.
throw, if you, like, for instance, when I, and we have to go up to this, but like, when I was young at 18, I know I belonged on camera. I belonged things, but I belonged those places. At the time, I thought it was filmmaking. There wasn't an internet. There wasn't cell phones. There was so many things that didn't exist. So I went
Right.
towards film. I went to film school. I went to television production school. Everywhere I go, like not quite, not quite. Like Goldilocks, not quite. And until like so technology had to be invented for me to figure out where I belong. So sometimes
Right.
if you're a visionary, you may belong to something that doesn't exist yet. And so you just have to get like as close to as the vibration as you can, and you
Yeah.
slowly hone in on the signal. Yeah.
And that's how I do my sessions too, because I get a question. A lot of people in my sessions like, "What's my purpose?" And I will
Yeah.
dive deep and
That's where do I
I'll look
belong?
at I look at their karmic evolution and try to help them to decipher based on the frequency. Sometimes they realize it's a different expression than what they were thinking. They feel like, "Oh my God, I feel clear now," and they end up
Yeah.
doing it, and they feel like that breakthrough.
Yeah.
So
Because their
it's
heart is
important.
satisfied. It's where it belongs. Well, we
Yeah.
got to go, Scott. But speaking of you, it's Thursday. You got your show tonight. What are you be talking about?
Yeah, actually, tonight I'm talking about awakening the divine feminine. Like as I said in the top of the show, I think 2025 is where the divine feminine will actually be resurrecting, and we'll get to dive deeper into what that really means for even not just with female, but with men, because we both have divine masculine and divine feminine. We both have those counterparts, but how to really tune into the divine feminine and how to really awaken that to bring proper balance, and it will coincide with self-love to a certain degree too, because it's all about that nurturing creative energy. So
Totally.
tonight, and I'll be doing live readings too. You can book a question, live readings, and do it. First, start with a collective read, then I'll take some live readings, and we have a lot of
He
fun.
does like dreams. He answers your question, and it's a great way to kind of test the water with Scott too.
Yeah.
Because the questions are a little, a little private. Like people send clues, and so you don't have to be all out and open. So if you're trying to like relax into being with a psychic, try
Yeah.
one of these. It's like $25, and it's great. And you'll be blown away actually how good Scott is. And if you want to learn about the step system, well, SeriousJoy.com is the source of the step system. I've been trusted with it from my guides to bring it to Earth. And, you can try it for $3.99 at SeriousJoy.com. Give us a try for 30 days. See if your life doesn't improve. All right, Scott, that's all we have for now. We're going to have to come back with step 4 as like an episode because it's so complicated. And Aquarius is, so we'll think about that.
And
meanwhile,
past lives.
What's that?
And we'll talk about past lives too. I have to do a show on past lives and stuff too. So I think that'd be a
would
good one
love
too.
to do a show on past lives. I mean, and we need, that'd be fun. We need to. That'd be really great. I mean, we have a lot of great stuff in the can now. We actually have a associate producer. Thank you to Erica for doing this research. So if we appear smart, it's not us, it's Erica. And remember, friends, don't deal with a shit show. Lead out loud. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Oh my God, that was quick.
We're smart. Yeah. It's so much we can unpack, right?
Yeah, in an hour,
It's hard to narrow it
but
down.
I'm proud. Like people are gonna understand a little bit of the basics.
We're in love
sort of
with self-love, right, Christopher? We're in love with self-love. That's why we went so long.
Yes, it is because I just can't get enough of myself. Really, I can't.
I can't get enough of you either. Too much.
If only you could do it off camera. Just kidding. It's the camera that makes it special. Really is.